Today we'll be replacing the radiator in this 1996 Land Cruiser Prado. This one is equipped with a manual transmission and 1 KZ diesel engine. Our first step is going to be to drain the coolant, but what we're going to do first here is add a liquid moly radiator cleaner. We're replacing the radiator, so I'm mostly using this to break down the gunk and build up in the engine and the heater core. So we're going to drain a little bit of coolant first, pour this cleaner in, go for a nice spirited drive, get everything nice and hot, bring it back in, let it cool down, and start draining. Ignore the cat. He's not a very good helper. These are the tools I use to remove this radiator. I just got a flashlight, a 3/8 ratchet, 12mm socket, 10mm socket, a roughly 12-inch extension, a 6-inch extension. Just kidding, that's more of like 3. 10mm wrench, 12mm wrench. Both of these are much better if they're ratcheting. 12mm ratcheting will save your life trying to take the nuts off of the radiator fan. Got some pliers, get some better pliers. These adjustable ones suck. It's just all I had, so it's what I used. And I got a Phillips just so I could take off the clips that hold on the intercooler ducting. Not the best angle whatsoever, but I'm laying underneath the Prado. This is more towards the right side of the engine. There's a hole in the undercover. This is the drain petcock, haha. And as you can tell, mine's previously been broken, but it spins pretty freely for me. What you may need to do is remove this undercover for the engine. It's just got a bunch of 12mm head bolts going all the way around. Most of them have this front and rear cover. Some are missing them, but do what you got to do to remove it. Take the cover off if you need. Put some pliers on there. Gently twist it, and that should get it loose. And you're just going to drain a little bit out so we can put this radiator cleaner in. This is the radiator cleaner we're going to use. It's made by Liquid Moly. It's pretty good. You can tell after you drain the coolant that you got a bunch of gunk out of there, and it definitely changes the color of the coolant, so I guess it works. Part number is 2051. We like it. It works well. So crack it open, pull the silly little safety tab, and pour it into the radiator. All done. Replace the radiator cap. Spill as much coolant as you can all over the engine bay. Remove the cat. Close hood. Go for spirited drive. When you go on your spirited drive, make sure you don't get stuck behind your slowest driving neighbor. Otherwise, it's going to take you a lot longer, and we're not going to be quite spirited, and we're going to be kind of slow and boring. Also, if your Prado is equipped with automatic HVAC controls, that looks like that, make sure you turn the heat on, because these have a mechanical block off at the heater hoses, which can prevent coolant going through the system, and then you're not going to be flushing out the heater core, which is one of the whole purposes we're doing this. Once you get back from your drive, pop the hood, let the engine cool down, come make yourself some eggs and bacon, have a cup of coffee, and wait. First things first, disconnect the battery. It's just a 10mm nut. Pull that off, pop the cable out of the way, clear from the battery terminal, and you're good to go. Next, pop off the upper radiator hose. Like I said, use better clamp or use better pliers. This is all I got, so it's what I'm using. Do that, slide off the top. I will be replacing the radiator hoses, so we're just going to completely get rid of this hose, get it out of the way, make everything nice and easy for us. Pull the clamps off, give it a twist, pull off the upper hose, and that's our first step. The positive wire runs across the radiator fan shroud. We got to get rid of that so we can pull the shroud out. We've got little plastic clips right here. All you need to do, press down, pull this tab out a bit, lift it up. There's 2 of them. Do it there. Do it here. There you go, out of the way. Now with your battery disconnected, you can disconnect it there, get this cable out of the way. I'm lazy, so I'm just going to move it a little bit. Squeeze this little clamp. This is for the coolant overflow bottle. Tuck that hose out of the way. Whatever you like. Yep. Now with most engine driven fans such as this mechanical fan, they bolt to the water pump. And the easiest way for us to remove this whole thing is we undo those nuts there. They just are 12mm heads. If they've been off before, they're usually pretty easy to take off. You don't need to hold the water pump, but you may need to use the pry bar / flathead to kind of spin it, so you can get all 4 of them. Undo those, kind of just let the fan hang out down there, disconnected, and then you're going to undo these 4 10mm head bolts that go and hold the fan shroud into the radiator. One here, and then 2 on the other side. And then I like to pull out the radiator and fan shroud together. Come here with my ratcheting 12mm wrench. Put it here. Break that loose. Break that loose. Break that loose. So I've got 3 out of 4. What I do, get your pry bar or flathead, kind of wedge it between the nut or the stud, so you're not kind of rounding out the nut, and just spin it. It might be a little tight, but it'll go. I've had no issues doing it this way. I guess technically the proper way to do it would be disconnect the belts so there's no tension on there so you can freely spin it, but then it's a little more difficult trying to put pressure on the fan so it doesn't spin when you try to break the nuts loose. So I find this easiest. I've never had an issue with it. Just do that, take the nuts out, let the fan hang down to the side. With all 4 nuts off, take your fan, pop it off. Be very careful not to poke a hole in your radiator if you're not replacing it. If you are replacing it, poke as many holes into it as you want. And we're just going to kind of let this hang out right here for now. Now we're going to start taking off the fan shroud. There are 4 10mm bolts, like I said, going all the way around. They're all in about the same place on either side. You got 1 here, 1 below it, and then you got 2 in the same place on the other side. So 10mm, break it loose. If you got a power tool, highly recommend using it. Electric ratchet with a 10mm works perfect on these. I don't got one here, so we're just doing this. There's 1. With all 4 fan shroud bolts and all 4 water pump / cooling fan nuts off, we're just going to slowly remove it all together as one piece, being careful not to poke holes in the radiator unless you're really in the mood for that. There you go. Here's what we're looking at with the fan and radiator shroud removed. Like I previously said, I'm replacing the radiator hoses, so I'm going to disconnect the radiator hose from where it goes to the thermostat housing, which is right here. So I'm disconnected there, so I just 1 less clamp, and it's a little bit easier for me than trying to pull off that pan down there and finagling that. With the lower radiator hose disconnected, now we're on to the home stretch, and that is there's 4 12mm head bolts that go in through the front of the vehicle and out the back. You can see them on the bracket right here. Here's 1, there's 1 below it, there's 2 more in the exact same spot below. What we're going to do here is we're going to pull off this intercooler ducting, and there's a bolt head behind there, and there's another one lower behind the bumper. These are the fasteners that hold in the intercooler ducting. Just use a type 1 Phillips, spin it a few times, and then you can kind of grab it by the base, or stick a little flathead screwdriver in there and pry up, and they pop right out. Easy peasy. There's 4 on either side, 8 total. Intercooler ducting out, we have much more room here. That is your first bolt, like I said, 12mm head, and kind of for a bit further down. Right there, the left side. This one you'll probably need to use some extensions and go from the front of the bumper, or just go behind right here with a smaller extension and a 12mm socket. Easy peasy. You got 1 here, 1 above it, 2 on the other side, same spots. right back there is where we've got one of the lower radiator bracket bolts. Wobbly socket would really help. It's not necessary. I've just got an extension on a 12mm socket and a ratchet. Go ahead and get it. Get that one all the way out, and that's it. With all 4 of those bolts out, we're now just going to grab the radiator, kind of tilt it forward, so we get these arms out of the way. Let some stuff fall, and remove. The thermostat housing is kind of a funky shape. I'll show a picture of it when I get it out. There are 3 bolts to it, and then the oil dipstick bolts to that housing as well. So it's all kind of, it's annoying. But here's where the first bolt is. This is the whole thermostat housing. That's an empty hole, nothing goes through there. We've got 1 bolt here, and then you follow it up. All the way up here. Let me get a better angle. Here's our dipstick. Behind the dipstick, you got 1 bolt there, and then another one on the opposing side, down at the bottom, just underneath it. Really tough to see. That's why I said this one kind of sucks, but that's how you get to it. And then dipstick, follow it down, bolts on to the housing right there, right behind that nicely placed hose clamp. Easy peasy, right? No. Here we have the engineering masterpiece, which is the 1KZ thermostat housing. This guy can be somewhat of a nightmare to remove if you've never done it before. The worst part is this bolt. This is the one that's kind of behind the charge pipe hose clamp, and the oil dipstick tube kind of covers it. It's really difficult to film the removal of this, so you just got to kind of look at this and do the best you can. This bolt's really easy. The top bolt's really easy. This one where the dipstick tube bolts to, not so bad. You got to kind of, you unbolt it, bend the tube out of the way, undo the hose clamp on the charge pipe, and just kind of spin it out the way. And then this one is kind of accessible if you use a 10mm socket with about a 3 or 4 inch extension and a ratchet. You should be able to get it. I believe in you. You got it. And here's our culprit, a thermostat. The factory one's an 82 degrees Celsius one. We suspect this of being stuck closed because our lower radiator hose is always cold. No issues of overheating, anything like that, which is surprising. Hopefully it's a new issue. So let's go ahead and test it. Quick test of the thermostats. The one on the left is the new one I will be installing. It's a 76 degree, which is a little bit cooler than the 82 degree on the right, which is the old one. The water is pretty damn hot, and this right one's not even opening. It is well over 82 degrees Celsius and nothing. Highly recommend changing out your Prado thermostat as soon as you can. Like I said, this one is stuck closed for me. I've changed one previously where it was stuck open. Pretty common issue, it's appearing to me. So go ahead and change those as soon as you can. Congratulations on removing your 90 series 1KZ Prado radiator and thermostat housing. The whole reason we're going ahead and changing this radiator is because it's the original, and it's about, what year is it? 27 years old now, I'm assuming. And we can tell right here at the top of the radiator, we've got some yellowing on the upper hose port, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Usually when I see that, this radiator is not long for this world. And then we can see some staining from seepage between the tanks and the core. Not a big fan of that either. So we're gonna get this one sent out, get a custom aluminum one made. There are some cheaper options. You can get like some eBay made ones, but not a big fan of that, not how I roll. So once that one's back, we'll be back with another video on how to install it. Thanks for watching. Bye.